Today I wanted to talk a little bit about recycling. Now, most of us generally recycle because our council tends to provide us with bins, and most of it can go into the bin with the blue top is common to most councils. The non-recyclable waste goes into the bin with the black top, and then you've got garden waste in the brown bin and food waste in the food bucket as well. If you are unsure, check with your council what goes in where and what you have to do. Some councils prefer you to break down cardboard, others are okay for you to just leave it as it is. But really, when it comes to recycling, do we all do enough? Research has shown that some pet owners, for example, recycle things like newspapers and other bits and bobs, but don't actually recycle their pet cans. So how can you tell what can be recycled? Well, pet cans, for a start, do actually say on the back, these are recyclable steel. So there is usually a marking on the object itself. Take this milk carton, for example. On the base, there's numbers. Those numbers range from 1 to 7. This milk carton is a 2. This means it's plastic, so this bit can be recycled, but check with your councils as to whether the top can be recycled. Ours in Northampton takes the top. If you are stuck, go to greenlivingtips.org, I think it is. I will just double check that and put it on the screen. And they will give you a cheat sheet of all the different numbers, and you can say whether you can recycle things in your bins or not. But what do you do with the waste that you can't recycle but you don't want to put in the black bin? And that is things like food wrappers. You can do something called an ecobrick. An ecobrick is really simple. All you need is a plastic bottle. You can have these 500 millilitre ones, smaller ones, great big 2 litre ones, but you also need a poking device. And all you do with these old packets is you scrunch them up and you push them into the bottle. If they get stuck, you can use the poking device. I've got a chopstick just because of the size of the bottle to help you poke them down, and of course to push down that wrapper to really squish it down to the bottom. And the first thing that goes in, of course, is the label of the bottle. And here is one I made earlier. It takes a lot of wrappers. This has surprised me how much goes in here. And the question is, of course, what do you do with them? It's interesting if you go on the ecobrick's website, because you can either bind a lot of them together and they become a nice flat top for tables or for art or a piece of sculpture. You can use the big ones as stools. I know a lot of play groups, they use them quite a lot. And it is possible to use these as bricks for foundations in the garden, just for things like little garden walls. But be very, very careful if you do that. On the ecobrick site, they do give you suggestions, but insurers may not, and probably at this stage will not cover them, because they cannot guarantee the safety of the bottle itself. And why can't they do that is a good question, because whilst I say it takes things like crisp wrappers and food wrappers, do try and rinse them out first, make sure they're clean before they go in. It doesn't matter if there's just a couple of crumbs, but if you're actually putting food in there, waste food, that will decompose. There's not a lot of oxygen in there, but what little there is will get in. And as it decomposes, it might change the constituency and therefore sturdiness of the bottle. So that's another thing you can do. But in looking at my recycling this week, the thing that I've noticed the most is that I have learned a lot about what can be recycled, what can't, where recycling things go, and I do now find myself looking for wrappers that I've used to put in the ecobrick, as well as thinking about what to recycle. And I'm wondering now whether I can have an ecobrick and a chopstick in each of my rooms instead of having a bin. That's a possibility. The bigger question is, even if we're recycling, is that enough? Because there are still landfill sites getting filled. There are still tons of gases being released into the air, even if we recycle. So perhaps the next step really is living zero waste. And that's something I'm going to look at in another video.